Good evening, I'm Stephen LeDrew, and tonight, the controversy over prescription drugs. Do you think you're paying too much for your prescriptions? Well, the Ontario government's plan to reduce prices has pharmacists fighting mad. We're going to hear from both sides of this debate tonight. And also, singer Susie McNeil is here to talk about her new acoustic album about the third season of The Next Star that she's judging. And it just never ends here on a Friday night. Comedian Maggie Casella is here to preview the upcoming We're Funny That Way Queer Comedy Festival. But first, let's check back with some of the other stories we're following tonight with G. Young Lee. Thank you very much, G. If you support the government's proposal to stop payments from drug companies to pharmacists, call us now. In order to reduce the prices of drugs, if you agree with that, call. Or if you're worried it could force your neighborhood pharmacy to shut down, you can call us as well on that. When we come back, we're going to be joined by both sides of this debate. Here are the numbers.
To reach us within the GTA, you can dial 416-872-CP24. That's 416-872-2724. Or from outside the area, call us toll-free at 1-888-863-CP24. Or if you're on the internet, you can send your email to LeDrewLive@CP24.com.
The drug battle between the province and its pharmacists spilled out onto the lawn at Queen's Park today. About 100 white-coated protesters voiced their dismay with the government's plan to end so-called professional allowances. The government says the plan will lower the cost of generic drugs for patients, but pharmacists argue it would make it impossible for them to provide needed services, even with an additional $150 million in promised funding. They say it should be more like $260 million a year. So join me now to talk about this is Ben Shenouda. He is the president of the Independent Pharmacists Association of Ontario. And also joining us live from London is the Ontario Health Minister, Deb Matthews. And we're also on the phone with Susan Ing, Vice President of Advocacy for CARP, which is a Canadian Association of Retired Persons. Thank you to everybody. Let's just go to the Minister first because, Minister, as usual, you're at the center of this one. Welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us. And why don't we just lay out for people who don't know about the controversy yet what exactly your position is?
Well, nice to be with you, Steve. This is all about getting lower prices for generic drugs for the people of Ontario. We are paying far, far too much, 4 times as much, 5 times as much for the very same drug as people in other jurisdictions. So this is all about getting fair prices for people of Ontario. In order to do that, what we need to do is reduce or eliminate these so-called professional allowances, payments paid by the generic companies to the pharmacy owners in exchange for stocking their products on the shelves. So last year, the value of those professional allowances was $750 million, and that's why we're paying such inflated prices today.
Now, Minister, most people don't know about those charges. It's $750 that the drug companies pay to pharmacists, as you say. $750 million. Yes, that they, yes. Excuse me, that they pay to the pharmacists to stock their products. Without being too technical, in other jurisdictions, that could be called a kickback.
Some people have called it that.
And so when people know that they're going to end up paying somehow, I'm wondering what the problem of the pharmacists is with this. So let's just go to Ben on that. You've heard the minister, Ben, and you're for the independent pharmacies, which is different from the large-scale, if you will, the chains. Yeah. But are you in support of these fees, or would you rather have a fee per prescription for your members?
I support the elimination of professional allowance, and I support to be paid directly for the service I provide. But in the same time, I would like to add a couple of comments on what the minister just have said.
Sure.
This system has been created by the McGuinty government, and they called it professional allowance. And this system is legislated, audited, regulated, and there is areas where pharmacists are supposed to spend this money. And
wait. The pharmacists are you saying the McGuinty government started this system where the drug companies pay back to the pharmacists?
Legislated this system in 2006. There is 4 criteria the government have put. Pharmacists can use this money to spend it in those 4 criteria. Pharmacists are allowed, according to the law, to report every 6 months back to the ministry with the amount of money we received and the usage of that money.
So the government is clearly changing its mind because it wants to have cheaper drugs. So if we put in the... Go ahead, Madam Minister.
If I could, I mean, Ben is giving part of the story here.
Right.
So back in 2006, we did take what was a completely unregulated system and put some terms of reference around it. So we said, what you can do is charge these professional allowances, but you need to report back to government on how much you get and what you're spending those professional allowances on. We've had a few years now to see what's going on when it comes to professional allowances, and what we've learned is that only 30% of the money that's collected by pharmacies for professional allowances is actually going to the kind of frontline service, that direct health service that was intended for professional allowances. So it's a bit disingenuous to suggest that this is a big shift for us.
Well, so it seems to me, because I know that these payments were going on for years before 2006, so what you're saying, the government position is that you brought in these rules so you could find out how much money was being paid, where it was going, and now you have that information, you want to change the rules. But let's go back to Ben on that then. I mean, you don't agree with these payments, but your independent pharmacists clearly need some extra income on this thing. So what if the government just raises the fees? There's a prescription fee that everybody pays for a prescription. Is that not satisfactory?
Yeah, we have been asking for that, but I don't think that the government was willing to do it because there is a gap in the cost of filling the prescription. Yeah. And I'll go back to the argument with the minister. Yes, the professional allowance was legislated by McGuinty government, but we are willing, and we already mentioned this in our proposal and meeting with the minister many times, we are willing and agree about the giving of the government to reduce the prices of generic. We agree about elimination of professional allowances, but this is not the stop of it.
It doesn't sound like you two are very far apart, but let's go to Susan Ng and bring her in on this conversation. Susan, what is your view on this one?
Well, our biggest problem is the cost of drugs to the consumer.
Right.
And whether it's you and I paying for it ourselves or whether the minister pays for it in the case of seniors. In either case, it doesn't matter. If we're going to give more money to pharmacists, it's going to come out of the pockets of the public purse, either as private citizens or as taxpayers. Now, the question is, what do you get for that money? If, as proposed by the minister, that there be money set aside, and no one's talking about this for some reason, to compensate pharmacists to provide professional service such as consulting, and I would fault the government for not bringing forward those specifics at this time so that it allows the conversation to spin around dispensing fees instead of professional services. Because remember, as consumers, if the province starts paying for these consulting services, then we get more services for our money. Whereas if all you do is increase the dispensing fees, we get no more services for our money. So that's where it lies for us as consumers.
It seems to me that the three of you are almost in agreement. Everybody's saying that these fees are a bad thing, and they're almost under the table until the government brought in legislation in 2006. And it seems to me, Madam Minister, that the only problem is that the independent pharmacies are saying they just need a higher fee in order to survive. Is that fair?
Yeah, no, I think today the pharmacy organizations came forward with a proposal, and what they're saying now is that they can support the elimination of professional allowances. That's great. That's refreshing news. But they also came with a very large price tag in exchange for that. In fact, on first blush, and I haven't studied their report, but it looks to me like they're asking for actually more money than they would be losing with the elimination of professional allowances, which does not accomplish our primary goal, really our only goal, which is to bring down the cost of drugs. Our proposal will bring down the cost of drugs by hundreds of dollars for some people. I met a gentleman yesterday, between he and his